Hello ladies and gentlemen, Gaming Medley here, and welcome to my series Medley Talks, a series where I give you a medley of my thoughts on what's currently going on in gaming. And today we have some breaking news indeed that is oh so succulent, so sweet, so, as Gollum would put it, rah and wriggling. So let's talk Konami, everybody's favorite shitheads of the video gaming industry. So Konami has done two rather significant things today. One, they fired their worldwide technology director, Julian McMahon. And two, they have also stopped production on all AAA gaming titles for consoles except for Pro Evolution Soccer and Metal Gear Online. People have been going ballistic. And by that I mean insane. I've been watching several rants on this topic that have just been people saying that this will be the death of Konami, that obviously the only reason they would do this is because they're going to go bankrupt, that we'll never see Konami ever again just in any sphere as a company at all, that we should all just kill ourselves because there's no hope of a Silent Hill or a Castlevania or a Metal Gear game ever coming out ever again. I'm going to try to bring some more moderate discussion to the table. First thing I'd like to debunk: Konami is not going under. That's not why they are not stopping the production of AAA gaming titles on consoles because they're going bankrupt. They're doing it because compared to everything else Konami is doing as a company right now, gaming is just like by far the least lucrative. For those of you who don't know, Konami are also the same guys behind Yu-Gi-Oh! And Yu-Gi-Oh! Is actually a very big thing. It's kept on getting bigger and bigger somehow. I wasn't aware of this, but I went to YouTube today and Googled Yu-Gi-Oh! And there are several people who have like hundreds of thousands of subscribers just talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! News. So there's a pretty big market for that, and it stands to reason that it would be a very lucrative thing, because it's a card game that's very easy to get into, lots of people play it, and it's really cheap to produce. If you think developing a game costs as much as making Yu-Gi-Oh!, you are totally wrong. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is way cheaper because you can just be like, he's a 7-star creature with 4,000 attack power and 3,000 defense power. There, put him on a card, print it out, send that cardboard out, we got it done. Yeah. Printing out cardboard pieces that have little numbers and illustrations on them costs a lot less money than developing, marketing, and producing an entire video game. In addition, Konami also is extremely lucrative in terms of their business in the pachinko market. For those of you who don't know, pachinko is kind of like a gambling machine, and in Japan, gambling is actually outlawed, so the way they got around that was by having pachinko dens where you're not gambling, you're playing a game, you're gaming. Konami manufactures a large amount of pachinko machines that are in Japan and are just anywhere in general. They make a lot of them, and by a lot I mean a lot of them. And pachinko, as it turns out, as anybody who's ever gambled will know, is a very lucrative market. By far one of the most lucrative that a person can get into. Gambling is a very profitable industry. So no, as much as I wish that Konami defunding the gaming division of their company would just make them go bankrupt and absolutely destroy them, it absolutely won't in any way. Konami are probably going to be rolling along just fine after this, and actually they might be seeing more relative profit after stopping producing video games because they won't be pouring all the required money into marketing and developing. I talked about how Metal Gear Solid 5 actually had its true ending cut by Konami, and that this was probably due to release time constraints. It was also due in large part to budget restraints, because they were simply like, it's gonna cost too much to fully flesh out this mission, so we'll just put it in a Blu-ray disc for the collector's editions and leave it at that. It costs a shit ton of money to make a game. I mean, Tomb Raider sold what? Tomb Raider sold millions and millions of copies. And at the end of the year, Square Enix came out and said that Tomb Raider still hadn't made enough money to make a profit for them. If your game is selling millions and millions of copies a year, and you factor in that each one of those sells for anywhere between probably $30 and $60, and then will make more money as the years go on and as the game goes on sale and as it's remade and remastered and stuff like that, if you have to sell like tens of millions of copies of something in order to make back the money you've invested into it, it's probably not going to be extremely profitable. So video gaming just hasn't been profitable for Konami, and I think that is the reason that they are cutting it. In addition, the gaming side of Konami that is dedicated to video games has just been getting horrible PR, and it's for no small reason. Either I actually stopped my Let's Play of Metal Gear Solid 5 because I didn't want them to do some bullshit and take down this channel, which they have been known to do, and flag me for some inane bullshit, just like many people have been flagged. They have blacklisted several journalists just for giving their games bad reviews or for essentially no reason whatsoever, Jim Sterling being the prime example here. Konami has been absolute shit when it's come to its video gaming fans, so I wouldn't doubt but that their horrific PR when it's come to how they handle the video gaming industry also has something to do with shutting down, even though, I mean, it's Konami, so it might just be that they want to make more money and they absolutely don't give a shit about their fans because, well, that's actually pretty obvious if you just look at any of the interactions they've had with any of their fans. Regardless, it's become this whole huge kind of shitfest for some reason that this has happened, and I am actually not incredibly distressed by it, and I'll tell you why. Now, I like Silent Hill, Castlevania, and Metal Gear just as much as the next person, and probably I actually like them more than the next person. I'm an incredible fan for all of those gaming series. I absolutely loved the Silent Hill games. I think they are by far some of the best, if not the best, horror games to have ever been produced. I love the Castlevania series because who doesn't need a bit of romping fun every once in a while where you play a vampire? And I love the Metal Gear series because it's Metal Gear and it's weird as shit and nobody knows what's going on, and yet it's still an incredibly innovative introduction to the stealth and action shooting genre every time a new one comes out, especially with the new one, which is just an amazing game. I'm very sad that we won't be getting more of those games. It wasn't unexpected for me. When Hideo Kojima announced that he was leaving Konami, or it was announced that he was leaving Konami, I mean, that signaled the death of Metal Gear to me. If another Metal Gear game had come out and Kojima hadn't produced it, I just wouldn't have played it. As simple as that. I just wouldn't have. He is Metal Gear to me, so if he made another stealth action shooter game, I would play that instead. But it also kind of hinted to me that something was a little bit odd. There were some sirens going off when I heard that Kojima was leaving because he was like their big video gaming guy. Who else did they have that was that big? That was their brain. I mean, he's a genius. And when you let your most inspirational and creative lead developer for your video gaming division of your company go, I mean, I think a lot of people, including me, we probably should have picked up on this, and it probably shouldn't be as much of a surprise as it is. A lot of people were expecting them to actually just sit back and farm their games out, which is a pretty reasonable assumption because Konami are huge shitlords, but at this point I think they wouldn't even be willing to pour the development money into making a spin-off shitty game because the PR investment would be far too high risk and far too little reward because if whatever they made as a spin-off to sell to people was complete shit, they would get completely lambasted for it and just utterly fucked by the community. And secondly, a lot of people probably wouldn't even buy something from Konami if it didn't have Kojima's name on it or something, so a lot of people expected them to create spin-off games. I can see why that's not going to happen. Really, I mean, it makes a lot of sense that they're doing this. Everything we've seen has just been leading up to this, and I am really not surprised at all that this is actually happening. I mentioned that they fired their worldwide technology director at the beginning of this episode, which really shouldn't come as too much of a surprise because Konami has been incredibly habitually predisposed, shall we say, to fire people once they no longer have as much of a use for them or they feel like their views are at odds with the company's. Even though I love all the game franchises that are going to die because of this, unless Konami ends up selling them, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, I'm actually not that sad because Kojima's gone. Silent Hill has been farmed out into a pachinko machine as long as it is under Konami control. There isn't much that they could have done well with these games. Norman Reedus, Guillermo del Toro, and Hideo Kojima were all working on one game, the new Silent Hill game, PT. The demo came out and it was fucking awesome, and they fucking canceled it. If they cancel that game, there's no hope of them making another good game after Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. There just isn't. I think it's a reality we need to deal with. Konami made some great games in their time. They made some amazing games in their time. But that was under completely different leadership. The leaders were different, the vision for the company was different, their ideals were in a completely different place. The Konami we know now is not the Konami that made Silent Hill 1 and made the original Metal Gear games and made the Castlevania games. The last time we will have seen what was left of that old Konami is in Metal Gear Solid 5. We've got that game and now it's time to let go. It's like people who think that the same Square Enix that developed Final Fantasy VII is still developing Final Fantasy games today. It's not. It's different. It's time to realize that the companies have changed. I don't see this as something tragic. I see it as something that's for the best. Because to me, what would be even worse than Konami canceling their production of AAA video games and killing Silent Hill and Castlevania and Metal Gear like they did today? What would be worse than that for me would be if new Metal Gear and Castlevania and Silent Hill games came out and they defecated on the faces of those once powerful and memorable and classic and legendary franchises. To me, that would be worse, because then you're just wasting people's time. Then you're asking people to go buy this game, you're putting a marketing campaign behind it, you're getting people psyched up to play the new Silent Hill or Castlevania or Metal Gear game. And when it comes out, it's absolute trash. And then you're just disrespecting your consumers, you're disrespecting your company's legacy, and you're just wasting everybody's time. At least now we know that if Konami ever turns around and are like, hey, buy Silent Hill, we decided to make it anyways even though we said we'd stop developing games. At least now we know not to buy it. At least now we know not to expect a Silent Hill or Castlevania game. At least now millions and millions of people won't spend years waiting, hoping that they'll get something that will never come out. At least now those things won't happen. And to me, that's honestly worth the sacrifice of having to hear this news now. I'd rather hear the news that Konami won't be making more games than be left in the dark and wonder where those games are for years. It's nice to have that hope, it's nice to have that illusion that something you love could still be brought to life again, sure. But it wouldn't be brought to life in the way you would want it to be brought to life. It would be a Frankenstein's monster. It would not be the game that you would want it to be. If a new Silent Hill or Castlevania or Metal Gear came out after Metal Gear Solid 5, it would not be the game that you wanted it to be. It would be a shambling, horrific animation of something that wasn't even close, but tried to get there in the shittiest way possible. I'm more happy that we won't see another one of these games than I am sad that they have died. And I think that's important to take into account, because Konami was an absolute cancer on the gaming industry. They have done nothing but shitty things to their consumers, to their workers, to the people involved in any kind of way with the company in the last few years. They have been nothing but horrible fuck-ups to everybody who's interacted with them lately. And as far as I'm concerned, it's fucking good that Konami is withdrawing from this industry, because we don't need that kind of cancerous company coming in here and fucking everything up for everyone. We don't need that shit. That doesn't need to happen. I'm glad that Konami is leaving. I'm glad that they're washing their hands of us, and I hope that we can do the same of them. I hope that people won't obsess about it, and I hope that people will realize that this works more to their advantage than to their disadvantage. I hope Konami will sell off these franchises, obviously, to better game companies and to better game developers, so that we can get the resurgences of these series. I hope that Hideo Kojima buys the rights to Metal Gear and keeps making Metal Gear games off of Kickstarter or something. I hope Silent Hill and Castlevania are being developed by good game developers. I hope that they're bought up by good game developers and subsequently turn into amazing games. There's nothing I would like more. I would love for Guillermo del Toro to suddenly be like, hey, I just bought Silent Hill, so now I'm making PT. There's nothing I would like more than that. But if that can't happen, at the very least, I'm glad we won't be seeing what kind of horrific abomination Konami could turn a new Silent Hill or Castlevania or Metal Gear into. Yes, this sucks. This is horrible. This is not something that I would have ever wanted, but I think it's for the best. And I think we all need to come to terms with it and relax and start realizing that more harm will come of obsessing about this than will come of it if we just leave it alone. Petition them to sell these franchises off, certainly. Get angry if they don't sell them off. Get angry if they don't have an auction for these things. Because these franchises can't be killed here. We can't let these franchises be killed here. But what we can do is realize that Konami was a cancer to the industry, and that it's ultimately a good thing they're gone. Okay, I think that about covers everything I want to say. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a great day. GM out.